on your left. He's going to be battling against Zach Mullin on your right, who's piloting a Sneak and Show deck, much like Josh Bravich earlier in the tournament. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting match. Probably not the matchup Zach Mullin wanted.
Nope, definitely not. I think that AJ, for those of you who are unfamiliar, one of the top, I would say, 5 at the highest number competitors on the Open Series in terms of finishes.
Yeah.
Numerous top 16s at Invitationals, a couple top 8s at Invitationals, in addition to multiple Open wins.
I would also call AJ Sacher one of the top brainstormers.
Absolutely. He had an entire series on Brainstorm. If you guys haven't seen it, you should go check it out. He has 3 in his hand right now, so we will be able to see expert brainstormsman AJ Sacher work his magic this game.
That's right. AJ Sacher actually told me between rounds, he asked me not to tell anybody, but I'm going to share it with you guys. He said, I only dyed my hair blue because I love Brainstorm so much.
Yeah? I like it.
Yeah.
Excellent choice.
He's a man dedicated to his craft. You have to give him that.
Currently deciding how he wants to brainstorm. Does he have the fetch land to be able to use Brainstorm correctly? There it is. It's the song of the album, Brainstorm by AJ Sacher.
1, 2, 3. Bolt, Ponder, Bolt is drawn.
Seems not very good against a deck that leads with Basic Island.
No, definitely not. Basic Island will very rarely be casting Delver of Secrets. He's going to be putting at least 1 back. He'll probably hold 1, or at least the Fork Bolt just in case. Just in case his opponent is playing a creature deck. So if you're AJ right now and your opponent plays Basic Island, what's the most likely deck?
With Basic Island. In this tournament, it's probably Sneak and Show.
Okay.
Or Omni Show, which are similar but not the same. You want different things against those 2 decks. For example, Lightning Bolt can actually be somewhat useful against
the Omni.
The Omni, yes.
Right.
Because they can theoretically put in some creature. I don't even know what I'm talking
some
about
sort
right
of
now.
some sort
like,
of
I think that
brand
they used
you...
to run Vendilion Clicks or something like that. I
We're
vaguely
gonna give you the
remember that
benefit of
happening.
the doubt on this one.
Yeah,
you had a hard round last round. I understand.
Yeah, I'm a little bushed. I got beat up pretty bad on the Storm with counterbalance ruling last round. So
AJ, after
dig deeper,
fetching, he's just gonna sculpt his hand. He's gonna try and figure out exactly what he needs for this matchup. He's gonna try and get all the counter spells. There's a daze.
Yep, and that'll certainly help stave off the turn 2 show and tell, which Zack has.
Yeah, we'll see if he goes for it here. Against an opponent who's cast Ponder, Brainstorm, Ponder, I like his play. I like his waiting.
Yeah.
No reason to go for it. AJ has no pressure.
And he's also got lots of lands in hand, so he'll be able to pay for the days eventually.
Exactly.
AJ now has a clock available.
So there's the pedal.
So he could theoretically go for it here to be able to play around Spell Pierce.
Right.
Because he can obviously pay for days.
Yep, I like this play. He can Flusterstorm and pay for days here.
Wow.
Or cast Force of Will. But AJ, no Force of Will. He's just going to have to let this resolve. And boom.
Not putting anything into play is AJ.
And there he draws the Tarmogoyf.
Not going to do it doesn't look like.
He'll Brainstorm. He'll at least posture that he has an answer to that Emrakul. And would you look at that? No answer to Emrakul.
No answer to Emrakul.
Imagine that.
Rug Delver, one of those decks that doesn't really have either main deck or sideboard an answer to a resolved Emrakul.
Really any creature with toughness over 3, it's very tough for Rug Delver. They have to counter it before it comes down.
Then again, there's not a whole lot of decks out there that can interact with a 15/15 that can't be targeted by colored spells.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough creature.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on the Emrakul? Do you think it should have been printed?
Probably not. I think that it cut off a lot of design space because now you're never going to... What could you possibly print that you would want to put into play with a Show and Tell, or put into play with an Omniscience, or put into play with an Oath of Druids, other than Gristlebrand, which draws a lot of cards.
Right.
So if you have a creature that draws a lot of cards, there's no enormous beat stick that is ever going to be able to replace Emrakul.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that they really just, I don't know. I mean, it is the rise of the Eldrazi set. They have to make a monster to end all monsters. But at the same time, we're going to be seeing Emrakul for a lot of years to come.
Yeah, I think that, well, also, Emrakul has 6 abilities. I think we could have cut off one of those abilities.
Right. Sure, make it invulnerable to Swords to Plowshares, that's fine.
Yeah.
Give it flying, that's fine. The extra turn, sure. Annihilator 6?
Annihilator 6 is a lot.
Wow. Annihilator 6. 6 permanents. People usually don't even have 6 permanents in play when the Emrakul comes into play.
Yeah.
So now, as player sideboard, let's take a look. AJ Sacher submerges, not going to do anything. Spell Pierce, that'll certainly come in. He'll go up to 3 Spell Pierces after board. What do you think about Divert?
Divert would be okay against Spell Pierce or Misdirection. Not really ideal against Flusterstorm. I think it's possible. I mean, AJ does have a lot of stuff he needs to take out. He has 4 Lightning Bolts, 2 Forked Bolts.
Right, he doesn't want any of those in his deck post-board. So I expect him to bring in 1 Spell Pierce, 2 Submerge, maybe even 2 Sulfuric Vortex if he feels like this game is going to go attrition-y.
I think that that's certainly a possibility, although he has 3 Pyroblast as well on the sideboard, and those are almost certainly coming in.
That too. So he can bring in up to 6 1-mana counter spells if he wants to.
And take out the 6 bolts
Right.
of various types.
Right.
He can also take out the Grim Lavamancer, although Lavamancer I think that you want to have on board just as another source of damage.
Right, you have to have the turn 1 or the turn 2 creature because after turn 1 or turn 2, you're just in danger of straight up dying.
Yeah. Looking at Zack's deck, he has 4 Defense Grid, which I think would probably be coming in, as well as a red Elemental Blast.
Wow. 4 Defense Grid.
4 Defense Grid is pretty aggressive, but it's also very, very good against AJ's deck.
It is, and if you're unfamiliar with Defense Grid, it's a 2-mana artifact that says if you or your opponent goes to cast a spell on the other player's turn, it costs 3 more.
Yeah.
So mana leak every instant, basically.
Yep, so AJ's Dazes will not only cost a returned island, but as well 3 mana. His Force of Wills will not only cost a life and a card and an additional card, but also 3 mana.
Right.
Oh, by the way, this deck usually wins before you have 3 lands in play.
Yeah, I don't think that AJ has 3 mana producing lands.
Yeah, not a lot of time.
So AJ Sacher definitely not in a good spot here. Loses game 1. He'll be on the play for 2, but even if he wins that one, he'll have to beat Sneak and Show on the draw for game 3, which is a pretty high task.
Yes, and AJ has been in this spot before, playing various types of Delver decks, various types of Brainstorm decks against Sneak and Show, and other Show and Tell variants. So he knows that now, to be fair, he does have a very tempo-oriented deck that can take advantage of the somewhat slower to set up Sneak and Show deck. That it can be a little clunky at times. It can get too many counter spells and not see any combo pieces,
Right.
or it can get too many Brainstorms like AJ had last game. And so it's possible that if AJ hits the correct pressure points, he can get it. He does, however, run the risk of just running into Sneak Attack or Show and Tell.
It's really easy for Zach Mullin to just get a nut draw, dump his hand onto the table. He plays 6 free hard counters, 2 Misdirection, 4 Force of Will, 5 counters that only cost 1, 3 Spell Pierce, 2 Flusterstorm. So it's a real lot of disruption, and after board he only adds more in terms of defense grid.
Yeah.
So AJ with his back up against the wall here, but that said, he has the coolest shirt I've seen today.
I like that one. Is that, what is that? Is that the Rain song?
That's
And his shirt says Make It Rain, and it's the Rain song?
That's the one.
I think that's the one.
The Song of Storms.
There we go.
The classic. The Ocarina. So AJ, getting ready to present there.
I think they are both mulliganing to 6, is that correct?
We'll
That's
check
what it
on
looks
that
like
for
to me.
you.
AJ looked like he grimaced and looked at the top few cards of his library, and as Zack is also shuffling in solemn silence, I imagine they are both going down to 6.
Yeah, and we just got confirmation from our table judge. They are both on 6 cards. And I have to say, the further both players mulligan, the more it favors AJ.
Yes, absolutely. His tempo spells, his pressure points, You know, when you have one less card, Wasteland becomes that much better. Force of Will becomes that much better. Spell Pierce becomes that much better.
Right.
Daze becomes that much better. So
and also Zack's draws. If he draws a Gristlebrand and an Emrakul, sure, they're the combo pieces that he needs. But in terms of real spells, he only has 4 cards to work with.
yeah. So AJ's going to lead with a fetch land and a pass.
Yep, both players on 6 cards for this game.
Zack Mullin, I can't... Oh, there we go. Thank you. He has the Ancient Tomb Island Show and Tell to be able to get turn 2 Show and Tell should he so choose. This is going to be a turn 1 defense grid.
And that is so powerful. AJ must counter that if he has one.
Yep. And it looks like he has the Spell Pierce.
He'll be piercing that. Zack will put it to the bin, but that's a fine trade for him because trading with a Spell Pierce is a hard counter this game.
There's defense grid. Urza's Legacy Rare was also reprinted in 8th edition, I believe. Possibly 9th. I think it was 8th.
I think it was 8th.
Very powerful magic card.
Really hateful.
Yes. They don't print hate cards like that anymore.
No. Actually, earlier in the day, me and Drew were talking about Choke.
9th.
We were talking about Karma.
Oh, jeez. Kudzu.
Kudzu as the original hate cards.
Gloom.
The almighty Gloom.
Yeah.
Chill. Chill was a tournament staple for years and years. But nowadays, the hate cards are a little more subtle.
People were talking a couple years ago about how good Core Firewalker was of a sideboard card. Well, I don't know. 8th and 9th. Oh, so
right. I'll give you half credit on that.
We had multiple reprints.
So AJ with a Tarmogoyf, he knows he has to get some pressure down.
And I think he's just naked this turn. So if Zack had gone for the Show and Tell to put anything into play, he was done for.
Right.
Luckily for AJ, Zack didn't have the meat on the bone to be able to put into play with Show and Tell there.
The Garfunkel to go with this side.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I just read your mind right there.
That was very, very well done. I didn't have a follow-up reference. Very disappointed in myself. If Zack was if AJ was running Ensnaring Bridge, as is often the case back in the day when Rug Delver and Sneak and Show would battle a lot to be able to deal with Emrakul, I could have made a bridge over troubled water joke.
Wow.
However, that is going way too deep, and I will be refraining from doing that.
Hold on, let me figure out what I would have said to you if you had said that.
If I had said that, sure.
Give me a minute.
All right. In the meantime, AJ is pondering. I didn't really get a good look at what the ponder cards were, but it doesn't really matter because they are getting shuffled away.
He needs some counter magic. He needs it right away. And right now, Tarmogoyf looks to be a 3/4. We have a land, we have an instant, and we have a sorcery.
Now it'll be a sorcery. Oh,
4/5.
artifact. There we go. As you can see, right under the clock there, we have our Tarmogoyf dice to be able to remind the folks at home and us, actually, what Tarmogoyf is.
Yep. Shout out to our friendly table judge for making it happen.
Yep. AJ top decked a Pyroblast.
Okay, great draw for him. That's going to let him really compete on the turn that Zack goes for it.
Yes. Unfortunately, AJ used his Volcanic Island rather than his Tropical Island to ponder originally.
Yeah, maybe hoping to draw into and play a Nimble Mongoose.
But Zack does not find a giant fatty to put into play with his Show and Tell. So now AJ kept in Stifle. Is that to just pick off fetch lands, do you think?
Well, if he had the opportunity to do that, I'm sure he would. But I think really what it's for is to stifle the Emrakul trigger, take 15, untap, and counterswing for the win.
Got it. Or to counter a Gristlebrand activation.
Exactly.
I see.
Exactly. It's not as good of a deal with Gristlebrand when your 7 life gets stifled.
Right. Pay 14, draw 7 is not nearly as good as pay 7, draw 7. So Zack's going to drop to 12 here. He finally found himself an Emrakul.
Yep, with misdirection backup.
Pyroblast.
Pyroblast, though, can't get misdirected, except to itself.
So Zack is at 8. AJ's going to put more pressure on the board.
Exactly.
And I think that Stifle is going to do exactly what you said. which is it's going to stifle the Annihilator trigger, and while Emrakul himself can't be targeted by colored spells, the trigger can.
Funny how that works. On Moto, it would appear as a colorless trigger, and it sure would look like you couldn't counter it, but you'd be able to.
Yep. It's a little counterintuitive, but I think it makes perfect sense. So we're going to block a Tarmogoyf here and take, what is that, 7?
I think the Goose was only a 1.
Oh, it's only a 1, so we're going to take 5, dropping
down.
Zack to 3. Zack's probably going to attack here,
I think that's the right play.
and this Stifle is going to happen.
If Zack drew a Force of Will, he could just hard cast
He did
it,
not.
but he didn't. So Stifle proves its worth right there. It doesn't seem that good countering the Annihilator trigger because you still take 15, but a lot of
but
times
with pressure
in
on
this
the
matchup,
board, yeah,
1 turn is all you need.
very tight play there from both players, I think. AJ more so having to walk a tighter rope, I should say.
You know, it seems pretty easy when you drop an Emrakul into play, because all you have to do is swing, but...
Well, you'd think that.
You'd think
Unless Stifle happens.
So if you're just joining us right now, I'm Zack Hall, joined in the booth by Ruben Bressler, guest starring for Gerard Fabiano. We're coming to you live from the Star City Games Open here in Edison, New Jersey. Currently in round 8 of 9, watching AJ Sacher and Zach Mullin battle it out for a spot in the top 8.
Yeah, I was talking to some New Jersey local battlers, players from Staten Island and New York City, as well as upstate New Jersey. This is one of several times that Star City Games is going to be coming to the area. We have an invitational in Somerset later this summer. There is also an event later in Somerset that will feature a team sealed event.
Yeah, actually, me and Drew were talking about that yesterday. It's on Sunday, so instead of Legacy, Star City is trying out a new team sealed format, maybe encouraged by Wizards bringing it back.
Yeah, I think that that's going to be a very popular event. I think that the popularity of the Providence Grand Prix, or I'm sorry, the Team Grand Prix last year has led to another one going to be this year in Providence, as well as Star City Games getting on the train. And I think that players really enjoy team events. I think that Magic in general is secretly a team game.
It really
you
is.
I mean, every once in a while, a Lone Ranger will top 8 2 or 3 PTQs in a row, having randomly cracked the format. But for the most part, it's teams.
And you know, when that Lone Ranger does, he doesn't stay a Lone Ranger for very long.
Exactly right.
You talk to all these old players who come back to Magic after 5 years, after 10 years. You ask them why they came back. They don't say, well, because I
cards were
really
interesting.
love... Yeah, they don't say that. What they say is, well, my friend started playing a couple of years ago. He said, the new set is great. I really wanted to play this PTQ because he was going to be there, because I could see all the people I used to play with.
Yep.
People get drawn back in by the other players.
I did a piece yesterday that you can read in the coverage where I interviewed a couple of the New Jersey and New York players, and one of them was Mike Flores, who we saw on camera yesterday and today, and he was a very big proponent of the team aspect of the game. He talked about how several of the old players, specifically John Finkel, were sort of done with Magic. They were falling away from the game, but they liked hanging out with their friends, so they kept playing, and that's really what brought them back.
Exactly.
And I think that that's the case for a lot of people.
John Finkel won a Pro Tour after he came back.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seemed like he quit. He was gone from the game for how many years? It had to be 5 years.
Probably
6
something
years.
like that. 4 or 5 years, and then he came back for, what was that, Kuala Lumpur?
Kuala Lumpur, that's the Pro Tour he won. I think what first brought him back into the game was Pro Tour Prague. Did a lot of testing for Pro Tour Prague, but Kuala Lumpur, he managed to put up the W.
So I believe Zack has decided to keep his hand, and now AJ is thinking long and hard about whether or not his current 7 is going to suffice.
And it has no force of will. He doesn't like it, but he's making a disciplined mulligan here, sending it back.
Not very happy about it.
Checks the top card of his library, and then the grimace. So AJ, looking for a force of will here. It's really what he needs to stop any potential turn 1 show and tells.
Yeah, show and tell turn 1 is a fairly unlikely thing for Zack Mullin, but AJ pretty much has no answer to it. So, on the play, force of will is the only thing.
Now, for Zack to get the turn 1 show and tell, he'd have to have one of his 4 Lotus Petals. He'd have to have one of his 5 2-mana producing lands. He'd have to have a show and tell, and he'd have to have a fatty. So,
right. Or he could have 2 Lotus Petals, which I think I saw Josh Ravitz do earlier.
Yep. He did that on camera versus Mike Flores.
Right.
Turn 1, Emrakul you.
There you go.
So here we go. He has a 6. He looks much happier with this. And he'll keep.
And he kept in a lightning bolt. Just trying to race, I think.
Yeah, I guess he sided out 2 Fork Bolts, some number of Lightning Bolts, Grim Lavamancer, I guess. Or maybe he just didn't bring in the Divert.
Sure. So AJ has Pyroblast in addition to whatever other things he may have in hand.
I do see a Force of Will in Zack Mullin's hand, though, so when he does decide to go for it, he will have a counterspell backup. So AJ has to find more disruption fast.
I think that having not facing down a turn 1 Delver of Secrets, Zack can sit back and play lands. Rug Delver is a much less scary deck when the clock starts 2 or 3 turns later.
Exactly. If AJ had turn 1 Delver, he would be in way better shape because he would never have to tap out. He would just leave up that 3/2 flyer and his mana the entire game.
Even if it doesn't flip immediately, even if it takes a couple draw steps to flip, just having the 1/1 in play and having the threat of being able to bolt your opponent every turn.
Right. A lot of it is less about the fact that it's only a 1/1, more about the fact that he doesn't have to tap 1 mana on a more crucial turn. So yeah, Zack Mullin looking to play the long game here. He has the Force of Will, he has the Brainstorm too, so he's going to look to sculpt his hand a little more, putting back some lands.
Yeah. He also has the Ancient Tomb, so he'll be able to play a show and tell with pay for Spell Pierce backup, or
Right.
Daze.
Or Flusterstorm.
Or Flusterstorm.
Ancient Tomb really does so much work in this deck. It seems like, on first glance, especially to a newer player, how is this card good? It shocks you every turn, but in a format like Legacy, it's usually not that bad. The extra mana is well worth it.
Zack Mullin also has Sneak Attack in hand.
Okay, so another avenue of attack.
No pun intended.
Pun very intended.
Pun very intended. My mistake.
So AJ end of turn fetches up a Trop, and we'll see if he has a Brainstorm.
Nope. Nimble Mongoose. So now we have what is probably a clock. I don't know how quickly AJ can get cards into the graveyard. He's going to need a lot of them. The Lightning Bolt and the Fetch Land are definitely going to be proactive ways to build up his graveyard, but he's going to need Zack to start playing things, and then AJ will fight over them in order to make the Nimble Mongoose a 3/3.
That's right, and Zack shouldn't cooperate unless he has a safe avenue, like he seems like he thinks he does here. Looks like he's going for the show.
There's Show and Tell.
And AJ, we'll see what he has.
Zack, in response, he's going to play around Stifle, get his land first.
Yep, heads up play by Zack. No reason to open yourself up to Stifle here.
And Zack does not have... Oh, he does have Stifles himself in the sideboard, although I would doubt that he brought them in here.
Yeah, not the matchup you want. That's for sure.
Nope, basic Mountain.
Yep, trying to avoid the Wastelands.
As best as he can. No, there's no reason to play duels once you have all your mana, though.
Right. This deck will never need more than 1 red source unless it has...
Unless it wants to play Sneak Attack and then activate Sneak Attack in the same turn.
Exactly. In which case the Volcanic wouldn't help him there anyway.
Right.
So here we go, Pyroblast. And AJ only has Daze, which will not counter that Force of Will.
And that's it. That's going to be the total number of creatures. He's going to have to start racing now.
And that is a Gristlebrand, so it's better than an Emrakul.
In this particular case, yes.
Exactly.
Much easier to race with a lifelink creature rather than a vanilla 15/15 once you have the Stifle.
A vanilla 15/15.
Yeah, it's not too special.
Right, exactly. Just the scariest creature you've ever played against.
Right, exactly. An H.P. Lovecraft-style demon monster.
Right from the abyss.
Yeah. Grizzlebrand and Tarmogoyf enter the battlefield.
That's not really fair.
No, it's really not. But this is Legacy. This is the format for all your unfair decks. Whereas last week, Legacy was the format for your fairest of decks.
It's pretty crazy how things change in a week, isn't it?
Yeah. Last week was the fairest one of all. And this week, not so much. More turn 1 kills than I think I've ever seen at an SCG Open. And might as well be turn 1 kills. Like putting in Gristlebrand or Emrakul on turn 1.
The de facto turn 1.
Yep.
We'll see what AJ can do here. I think he'll just have to flood the board with creatures if he has them. Hope to draw them into some more burn to maybe take out that Gristlebrand. As unlikely as that seems.
Yeah, he needs to get all of his lightning bolts and 2 more red sources, basically. Or trade in combat 2 for 1 himself.
Right.
Which will actually end up being like 9 for 1ing himself because Gristlebrand will draw cards off of it.
Right. If he can crack in with that Tarmogoyf for 4 damage, he might be able to finish it off. Right now, though, Tarmogoyf only a 3/4. I believe they're lacking a creature.
Yep. So Zack now is going to be on the... I believe Zack is now going to be on the cast Sneak and Show, or Sneak Attack, draw 7, hope to find an Emrakul to kill him here plan. Otherwise, he can... I mean, there's not too much that AJ can do at this point.
No. Zack should start off this turn by drawing 7. Oh, okay. A swing is fine, too.
Zack's deciding not to get greedy here, just in case.
Zack Mullin goes up to 23 life. AJ Sacher down to 11. He's probably trying to set up the sneak attack for next turn.
Yep, and Zack's going to drop all the way down to 21 and play sneak attack.
On the verge of being knocked out of this tournament here, he needs to come up with something fast. I think he only has 1 draw step to do it.
I think so too, and the problem with Rug Delver is that the margins are so thin. This is why it was so popular among high-level players, is that the margins are so thin that you feel so rewarded for making the correct line. The problem, of course, being when things go wrong, they go terribly wrong.
Right, and you're just out of the game.
Because Daze and Spell Pierce are great until you top deck them.
They're great until your opponent resolves a spell.
Yeah, exactly. And AJ with a handful of spells, but not a whole lot to do.
Yep. He's really constrained by his mana here. And to be honest, even if he had all the mana in the world, nothing he can do about that 7/7 beast.
Yeah, there were very few options that Rug Delver has ever had. There was a brief period of time where Rug Delver was playing things like Dismember, but those days are long gone. No one plays Gristlebrand like they used to. There aren't nearly as many Gristlebrand decks as there once were.
AJ Sacher, badly in need of a wipe away.
So we're going to play Defense Grid pre-combat.
But just in case Defense Grid. And now the way will truly be open if Zack Mullin wants to go for the kill this turn. And AJ, sitting with a handful of stifles.
Unable to stifle the sneak attack trigger.
Nothing he can do. Shake his head, sign the match slip, complain about it on Twitter.
Sure.
MO for AJ.
It's good work if you can get it.
So we're looking at a lightning bolt in response to bring Zack down to 12 life. Almost there.
Yeah, that's not going to be able to do it. He can also... What else can he even do? There's not much else he can do. I guess Lightning Bolt's the only thing he can do here.
Yeah, he can milk his camera time a bit.
Sure. Show off that new do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not too happy about it. With the point. I like it.
I think at this point you're supposed to throw that lightning bolt at your opponent.
Sure. That might be considered unsporting behavior.
Unsporting from AJ? No.
From AJ?
Get out of
never.
Here. Zack Mullin draws 7, drops to 5 life, but he should be able to find an Emrakul here.
Especially off of a Brainstorm, of which he now has 2.
Yep. Brainstorm number 1. Wow, any bricks?
Doesn't find it.
He's going to have to shuffle his library and brainstorm again. because really, he doesn't even have a force of will.
Yeah. This, if AJ gets very lucky here, by which I mean if Zack gets very unlucky here, there might be a very small window.
Yeah, there might be. If AJ can fill up his graveyard, attack for 7, and then that would still leave Zack at 4.
Yep.
I don't know. We'll see if AJ can do it. The first step, though, Zack has to whiff on this brainstorm.
Yeah. He has 2 brainstorms left, so he has to whiff on 2 brainstorms here.
That's right. Number 1, Petal, Land, Emrakul. There it is. The last card.
It. So Zack Mullin defeats AJ Sacher 2-1. Rug Delver against Sneak and Show, classic from the old days, 6 months ago.
The old days.
The old days of back before everyone had turn 1 kills.
So congratulations to Zack Mullin, theoretically locking a spot up in the top 8, assuming he can draw next round.
Yep. And AJ, sadly, with his second loss, is now most likely knocked out of top 8 contention.
Right. Gerard thought that an X2 could sneak into top 8, but I'm remaining skeptical on that one.
I believe AJ had a relatively early loss too, so his tiebreakers won't be the best.
Right.
But it's entirely it's still a remote possibility. So